If you're thinking about retiring to Tennessee, you're not alone. In fact, Tennessee has consistently ranked as one of the top inbound states for retirees relocating from other places. And I see this firsthand working with families who've moved here or considering moving here from places like California, Connecticut, Illinois. But there's one thing that's very interesting. Almost every conversation starts the same way. That is around taxes. They've heard that Tennessee is tax friendly, but they're not exactly sure what they're missing. They don't know what they don't know. Tennessee can be an incredible place to retire. I might be biased. I live here. I'm not retired yet. But there are some things that you need to consider and think about. There are some trade-offs that don't show up on the highlight reels you may be seeing on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through some things to consider as you're trying to plan for where are you going to retire to? Are you going to relocate? So what we're going to talk about is some real financial advantages, maybe the hidden costs people overlook, and how to know if Tennessee actually fits your retirement destination. So first, why are retirees moving to Tennessee? Let's start with this. This is the biggest thing, the biggest reason I think are getting retirees' attention and creating that magnet for people to move and retire to Tennessee. And that is no state income tax. But let's go a little bit deeper. Tennessee is one of the few states with no state income tax. There's a couple of others out there. So what does that mean? That means there's no tax on your IRA or your retirement account withdrawals. There's no tax on your pensions, and there's no tax on your Social Security. That's important to know and understand, but that doesn't mean there's no taxes at all. It just means there's no state income tax on those. So you would still be required to file taxes federally on your 1040, and all of those things would be taxable events or taxable income on your 1040. They do not require a state tax filing, and there's no state tax income on them. So that's an important planning nuance that a lot of people miss. They hear no state income tax, and they all of a sudden think that there's no tax at all. That's not the case. So be mindful of that when you're thinking about, does it make sense to relocate from a high income tax like California or New York to a place like Tennessee that has no state income tax? It can feel like a massive win, but it's important to understand all of the details. It might not be as life-changing as you once thought it was when you fantasize about no income tax. So just be thinking about that. Let's walk through an example. Let's say you had $100,000 retirement income and there's a 5% state income tax somewhere else. I think Michigan's is around 5%. I don't have the exact figure in front of me. I want to say 475, maybe 5.25. Anyway, so is it helpful to not have that additional state income tax of roughly 5%? Sure. Is it transformational? Not necessarily. The bigger benefit here, I think, is the flexibility in tax planning, especially when you're doing Roth conversions early in retirement. So how do we look at when we're giving you financial planning advice, when we're giving you retirement planning advice, how do we look at the entire picture to include state income tax, federal income tax, and how those might play into things like Roth conversions? So let's now talk about cost of living. That's another benefit that people think is a benefit for moving out of a high cost of living state like Illinois or California and into a lower cost of living like Tennessee. So Tennessee is still relatively affordable, but it's no longer cheap. There are some areas that might be cheap, but reality is Tennessee's becoming much more costly to live in, to retire in, than it once was. So A couple cities here, Knoxville, still a strong value, but it is becoming more and more congested. There are still some reasonable housing, but housing is becoming more expensive. Chattanooga is growing very fast. There's still some affordability in housing, but again, houses are increasing there as well. And then Nashville has had significant price appreciation. So median home prices have increased dramatically in all of these locations and throughout the rest of the state over the last 5 years. And so it's important that as you think about this trade-off, while you might save on some taxes, you might spend more on housing or more than you would have 5 years ago. So that's something to think about as you start to map this out to see, does this decision make sense? Now let's talk about property taxes. Property taxes go hand in hand with real estate as you're, maybe moving and acquiring a home here in Tennessee. And this is where I think Tennessee really shines. Property tax rates are among the lowest in the U.S. and many retirees coming from Northwest or Pacific Northwest or even in the Northeast may see significant savings here. In fact, I have friends in Dallas who spend 5 times more in property tax than I do. And so I find that interesting. And depending where you go, I'm here in Chattanooga, depending on where you go, you could find similar situations where, you might have city and county taxes in one part of the city or metro area, but in another, you may only have county property taxes. So it's important to be thinking about how these property taxes are going to affect your cost of living here. But overall, property taxes in Tennessee are substantially lower than you see in other states around the country. So that's a huge benefit. And again, where I think Tennessee may really shine. The next thing I want to talk about is, lifestyle and quality of life. This is not a part you can quantify with dollars, maybe to a slight extent, but for the most part, you can't quantify your quality of life and your lifestyle, relocate somewhere else, but it's often the real reason people move. They want to get away from maybe the larger cost of living metropolitan cities, and they want to have a quiet, lower key area to live in. And so Tennessee offers a lot of great access to lakes across the state. There is Tellico, Chickamauga, Watts Bar. There's Dandridge. There's a lake in Dandridge. There is Melton Hill. There's Pickwick State Park. There's all kinds of places. Nickajack. There's literally all kinds of lake access that you can get to and enjoy some of that lifestyle that maybe you don't get in a Dallas or Chicago or higher cost of living city, Denver, some of those places. So tons of lake access if that is your thing. We also have tons of mountains. So I say tons. We have one of the longest mountain chains in the country with the Smoky Mountains, a driving distance away from anywhere in the state, but specifically in East Tennessee. And the state parks that surround these mountains, these Smoky Mountains, is incredible for those of you that want to hike, see waterfalls, explore nature, do some caving, any of that stuff. So a lot of great benefits with lake access and mountain access. Winters are fairly mild. We don't get extreme winters. It gets cold. We have all 4 seasons, so it gets cold. But we're not dealing with snow every single day, every single week like you might get in Minnesota or Michigan or in the Northeast. And so you're not having to get out, shovel snow, shovel ice, any of that. We might get a storm once or twice a year. It happens relatively quickly. It's not severe. So I think these mild winters are another benefit that attract people to this great state. I think Tennessee has, no matter where you go, has a really strong sense of community. We're all very proud of our state. We are love the nature that it provides. People are friendly, and we're really have a strong sense of community. And I think a lot of people look for that, especially maybe retirees. So think about this when you're thinking about, does it make sense? These might be some of the benefits, some of the things you're looking for when you consider moving to Tennessee. So let's talk about some hidden trade-offs that might catch you off guard. You hear all the rosy stuff on blogs and YouTube videos and podcasts about the great state of Tennessee. So let's talk about some of the hidden trade-offs that might not be talked about as much. So the first one is high sales tax, and this can add up quickly. Tennessee has one of the highest combined sales tax in the country, and this offsets some of the no state income tax that you might, well, not that you might see, that is true. There is no state income tax here. But again, that's offset a lot of times by higher sales tax. So the more you spend consumption, then the more the state is going to get tax revenue from that consumption. So the state sales tax rate is 7%. And then you can have local sales tax rates that typically range between 2 and 3. So all in, your sales tax could be 9 to 10% when you're purchasing, goods and services in Tennessee that you may not be accustomed to. As an example, I live in Chattanooga. Sales tax here is around 9%. You can go right across the border and go to the Costco. The Costco for Chattanooga is actually located right across the border in Georgia. And that, because of that, sales tax is half of what it would be if they located that Costco 500 feet up the road and place it in Tennessee. And so it's something to be cognizant of, that when you retire here, sales tax is higher. And so this applies to dining out, purchasing furniture, vehicle, everyday purchases that you make would cause you to spend maybe a little bit more in taxes through that sales tax. So if you spend $80,000 to $100,000 a year in retirement, that could be another $8,000 to $10,000 a year in annual sales tax. So you avoid the income tax, but you're still paying. It's just in a different way. And I think a lot of times people don't take that into consideration. Now let's talk about healthcare access. And location matters a lot here. You've got some fantastic teaching hospitals here with Vanderbilt and UT Med Center, and they provide great access to healthcare. But there's a couple actually that you actually have St. Jude's Children's Hospital in Memphis. So I want to make sure I don't forget to mention them. But it's also important that some of the healthcare access is location specific. So while some of these have great healthcare support systems, some places don't have as good of options. So you want to consider that when you're moving into a location, especially as you retire. You're going to want to be close to medical providers and healthcare access. So that's important when you're thinking through this. Knoxville has a strong hospital system, great specialists. They have UT Med Center there. And so Knoxville is, in my opinion, really a gem of a city. It is a fantastic place to retire. It has everything. And so you can find great health care resources there. Chattanooga has, I would say, good healthcare access, but they're improving. We're getting a lot of people flooding in to Chattanooga from around the country, especially those outdoor enthusiasts. And so the healthcare access that you're getting in Chattanooga is good and constantly improving as more people are moving in. Nashville with Vanderbilt has fantastic healthcare resources. Again, Memphis with St. Jude has good healthcare resources. So it's really, really important that you know that the bigger cities have this. The rural access areas have limited access, longer drive times, maybe not as good a specialist. Maybe the hospital's not as great, or it takes longer to get to the hospital. So I don't think this should be a deal breaker for you, but it should be factored into where you choose to live should you decide to move to Tennessee. So let's talk about weather now. Tennessee's weather is mixed. We get all 4 seasons, mild winters. The cons are summers are usually pretty hot and humid. If you're not used to humidity, it can really kind of put some pressure on your chest. You feel sticky and gross, and so it's reality is summers get hot and humid. We have significant storm risk, so especially in kind of the spring season, I would say tornadoes are a big risk here. We've had them hit Nashville, Chattanooga, Knoxville, Memphis. It seems like spring. It seems like Tornado Alley, the old Tornado Alley out of Kansas, Western Missouri, Oklahoma, all of that. I don't follow those specifically as much, but it feels like a lot of the Tornado Alley is shifted down into kind of Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi. We're having increased weather risk that we weren't having 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And so it's something to really consider, is that it is not uncommon for us to have some of these storms. And I'm not saying that these places get 2, 3, 4 tornadoes a year, but it is a heightened alert that you should be aware of as you make these decisions. And then allergies. Knoxville, Tennessee, Chattanooga, Tennessee, East Tennessee, but Tennessee in general, allergies can be really brutal. I struggle with these. I get allergy shots. My kids struggle with these. So if you don't have allergies now, or mild allergies, you might want to just be prepared that allergies here can be really, really unbearable. And that totally depends on your allergy type, how sensitive you are. For me, my allergies last for 6 weeks in the spring when pollen kicks out. And then after that, it's pretty much over. So, just be thinking about that, because the last thing you want to do is move here in the spring, settled in, you find a house, whatever, and then you end up hating it in the spring I meant the fall, but spring rolls around here and allergies are just miserable. So, if you're moving from an Arizona or California where you don't have these seasonal type allergies, this could be a real adjustment for you. Growth and infrastructure. This has caused Tennessee's popularity with people moving here, not just retirees, but everybody, all shapes and sizes across the country and lifestyles are moving here. And so this has caused some growing pains for some of these areas. Traffic congestion is increasing significantly. Housing demand is pushing home prices up. Infrastructure is taking a while to catch up. And so it's important to know that places like Nashville and Knoxville and Chattanooga, Memphis, are having significantly increased congestion and traffic concerns that are making it it wouldn't prevent me from moving here, but I think, it's definitely causing some frustration for people that were thinking they were going to escape, the traffic that maybe they experience in some of these more congested metro areas. Finally, what I want to kind of talk about is the financial planning reality. And this is where I think some of the biggest mistakes happen. People move based on one factor. And again, like I started out in this video, it's usually taxes. And they don't look at the full picture. So I want to walk through kind of a simple example. Let's say a couple retires with a $1.5 million portfolio. They have $60,000 a year in Social Security, and they need $120,000 a year to live on. They move to Tennessee thinking we'll save on taxes, and again, they probably will, but then they buy a more expensive home than they were anticipating. Might cost $700,000 versus $500,000 where they were. Again, another example, here in Chattanooga, you can go right across the border into Georgia and get houses that are significantly cheaper than they would be on the Tennessee side, but you're picking up state income tax there. So, again, these are things you wanna weigh out as you move to Tennessee to determine, does it make sense. Maybe they went out more, they travel more, they spend more. Sales tax increased their cost of living, and so the net result means they're spending more, not less than they thought they would spend. With the idea of spending less on taxes ends up through other channels causing them to spend more than they originally would. And so retirement isn't just about minimizing taxes. It's about everything. It's about spending. It's about aligning that spending with your lifestyle and your income strategy and your portfolio, and how all of these things are woven together and play a part in your retirement plan. Tennessee can absolutely help and be a great place to retire to, but it's got to fit into your broader plan. So, who is Tennessee best for? Tennessee tends to be a great fit if you want to reduce your overall tax liabilities, your tax drag. You value lifestyle, space, community, outdoors, nature, anything outdoor living, and you want flexibility in your financial plan. It may not be the best fit for you if you want dense, walkable, urban living, very close to everything within minutes, need elite healthcare within minutes, or prefer cooler, drier climates year round. At the end of the day, retiring to Tennessee isn't just about saving money. It's about creating a life you love. And the best retirement plans don't just optimize numbers, they give you the confidence in the decisions you're making. If you're thinking about retiring to Tennessee and want to think through the financial side of it, that's exactly what we do at Paradigm Wealth Partners. You can schedule a conversation in the below description. There's a link directly to a booking page. You can also go to paradigmwealthpartners.com to learn more about what we do and how we help people. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Be confident in your retirement. Have a wonderful day.